welcome to our mini-series, The History of Los Alamitos. I'm your host, Myrt Perisho. Tonight we've got a group for you you're going to love. Everyone in town knows this group. We've got three old-timers that know everything in town. Right, guys?
You better know.
And just so no one gets mad at me, we're going to start with the person that got hit to town first, okay? Emme Otte. Emme, what year did you come?
I came to Los Alamitos in 1914, in September of 1914. I was born in Belgium.
I'm Belgium.
And was 4 years old. Now I'm telling my age.
That's all right. We're all going to do it.
Came from Belgium by boat, and I don't know whether this was a cattle boat or ship or lumber or what have you. I know it wasn't first class, with two of my sisters. And we ended up in San Francisco. From San Francisco, I guess we got to Los Angeles by train. Then there used to be a electric car, they call it a streetcar, from Los Angeles to Orange County, which came through Artesia, Cypress.
Are you referring to the PE?
Stanton. That was an electric car, and then we called it a streetcar. And I think we were let off at one of those places, Artesia, Cypress, or Stanton, which they're all three of them are about the same distance from Los Alamitos, where my folks picked us up, and took us to the place where they were farming. My mother and sister and three of my brothers and sisters, my mother and father and three of my brothers and sisters were farming on the Fred H. Bixby land, which was located west of Palo Verde and between Palo Verde Avenue and the San Gabriel River Bridge, which is this, in other words, the farm was approximately about a mile north of the Bixby Hill.
And you walked there?
And my dad, no doubt, picked us up by a horse and wagon and took us to that point.
Oh, I see.
There is where we lived, in a little old shack. And I mean to tell you, it was a little old shack built of you see Tijuana today and what have you. We lived in houses just like that. And
you were sharecroppers, weren't you?
1 by 12, yes. Sharecroppers. We raised sugar beets. And
what brought your dad to this town?
What brought my dad to this town?
Was it the sugar beet industry?
Yes. My dad came here before the rest of us came here, and found a place that I think my brother-in-law was here first, and his husband, my sister's husband.
Now, are both your sisters still alive?
There's two of my sisters still alive.
And Anna still lives in Los Alamitos?
Yes.
And what areas did the farms take in around here?
Oh, my land. There was nothing but sugar beets when we came here, but sugar beets and barley hay raised up to Signal Hill, into Artesia, Bellflower, Stanton,
my gosh,
Westminster, Santa Ana, and this was primarily all that was raised there at this time. Now later in years they raised other crops, but at that time it was sugar beets and barley hay, and the barley hay was raised to feed the animals that we farmed by, which there were no tractors at that time, and everything that was done on the farm was drawn by horses.
With the horse, yeah.
Yes. And
you drove those, didn't you?
I can tell a big story about horses and wagons and implements, that the way we worked our land. Do you want me to go into detail about how the beets were planted or how the land was harvested?
Yeah, give us a little bit of how they were planted.
Well, first of all, naturally the earth had to be plowed and worked so that we could get a seed bed to plant the seeds. And they were planted in rows, and then naturally, after they were planted, we prayed for rain and hoped that we didn't get too much of it. And if we did, well, there's be a good chance that our seed bed and seed and all would be flooded out, because we used to flood. This whole area used to flood, you know.
Oh, I know. We're going to talk about the floods.
Yes. And
tell us what a sugar beet looked like, because I didn't know till about 10 years ago.
Will be anywhere from the size of this cup here, and approximately 12, 15 inches long. And this would be a small beet, and they will get lowered as big as a baseball as far as that, or pretty as big as a football.
Don't they look a lot like a sweet potato?
They look an awful lot like a turnip.
Turnip.
Or
like
much larger than a turnip, the carrot type turnip. And
well, how did you get it from the field to the plant where it was processed?
By horse and wagons. We at that time we didn't have the 2 wagons because we were not that big of farmers at that point when we first came here. We had 4 horses on a wagon, and the beets were plowed by a plow that lifted the earth and made them loose. And then we had knives, long knives, 12, 15 inches long, with a hook on it, where we would take and hook the top of the beet, pull it up, and grab the beet by the tail, chop off the leaf, and throw them on a pile. And then after this was done and the beets were topped, why then we would drive wagons between the piles of beets and put them, pitch them onto the wagons with big beet forks.
Now, the wagons were going fine for a while, but tell me what happened when the trucks came in.
Well,
that was a cute story you told us about that big truck and what you did then.
Oh, the big truck, actually that was the one that we were talking about later, though, was the one that the Sugar Beet Factory had, and that used to take us to Orange County Park after the close of school or what have you. And
but it was so big, didn't you say it couldn't get into the fields?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so the horses still had to bring it to the road.
That is right. That is right. And there was a lot of the lands here that when we finally started hauling the sugar beets with trucks, where the tractors or horses would have to pull us in empty and help us get out, so that we could get onto the highways.
Well, you and your brother went into sort of a trucking business, didn't you?
Yes.
After they got the big truck, and it would just lumber along real slow going up the road,
Yeah.
and you'd whip by them. You make a whole bunch of trips for the run. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got into a lot of things in your life, didn't you?
I was.
Tell us some of the things you've done.
I quit farming when I was, and we were farming on the Hellman Ranch at that time. We have farmed on for Fred H. Bixby on 2 different locations, and on 2 locations on the Hellman Ranch. The Hellman Ranch is property laid south of 7th Street, which is now
Leisure World?
No, yeah, which now is Leisure World. And we farmed there and raised sugar beets and lima beans, alfalfa, and barley hay.
What did you do after you farmed?
After I farmed, I quit farming and went to Signal Hill and worked in the oil fields. And
what year was this?
Let me think. I was about 18 years old, and I came here.
The 30s.
Yeah.
Be in the 30s, wouldn't it? About
28. I'm pretty sure it's 28 or
okay.
20. And yes, I know it was.
Uh-huh.
Because I worked in the oil fields there for a while, and then later in years, I worked for the Artesia ice plant. I worked there for some time, and run an ice plant. And then later in years, went into trucking. And I was in trucking for probably 30 years. Hauled sugar beets with trucks and trailers, what have you.
And you always lived in Los Alamitos, though?
I have not lived in Los Alamitos all that time, but I have lived in Los Alamitos. Of the 70 some odd years, I have lived in Los Alamitos probably 60. And,
where'd you go those 10 years?
Well, when I worked at the ice plant, I lived in Artesia. And while my daughter was born, we lived that was in 1937. We lived in Long Beach for a short while.
Now, didn't you say most all the farmers were Belgium?
Practically all Belgium, yes.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know. They just, it seems like one got here and he wrote to Belgium, I guess, and here's a good place to make a living. And this is how they all came here, and primarily all Belgians. I can name a few. I can't name them even anymore of those that weren't Belgium. Lucero, Frank Lucero, I think was one of them, and he was a Mexican. And there were some, oh, my land is strange how these names, but I used to know every.
A lot of Belgians.
Oh, my land.
We've got a mixture here too, don't we, with our names, Labourdette and Poe. Poe, Mr. Poe, Bill Poe, let's go to you next, okay? Are you ready?
Ready as I'll ever be. I don't know where I'm going to start.
You're always ready for a story. You have wonderful stories about this town. With you, let's talk about the sugar beet plant, because the sugar beet industry is what made this town, right?
It was the whole background,
Yeah,
the whole backbone
everything.
of the city.
Well,
or the town, I should say.
Emmy's talked a lot about the farming. Tell us about the plant itself. It was huge.
Well, it was not so huge, but it was one of the early type facilities made strictly for processing
But it had those
sugars.
big stacks that you could see for miles.
Only one.
Just one stack
Yeah,
that you could
one
see it for
boiler
miles?
room.
Did I get that right?
Let me tell you a little bit about this, then we'll get right into the plant.
Okay.
The town was established in 1898. It was a part of Los Angeles County at that time. There was no Orange County prior to that. And Orange County was a split off of Los Angeles County about that same time in 1898, when this subdivision map was filed for the town of Los Alamitos by, I think, Bixby Land Company filed it. And the original record of surveys was recorded in Book 1, page 25 of the Survey of Maps of Orange County. With that background, the plant, there was a United States Senator, J. Ross Clark, and he had extensive mining interests in Montana, and he built the plant. And that's why it was named the home of Clark's Sugar. Yeah, I don't know if you ever heard that or not, but that was the home of Clark's Sugar, which was considered one of the better qualities and grades of sugar in the whole country. And that was also why the Montana Land Company, also owned by J. Ross Clark, was named the Montana Land Company because that's where all his copper holdings were. Now we're going into the plant.
Okay.
We'll talk later about all the jobs I had in that plant, but I should have, if they hadn't have folded up, I'd have made a career in the sugar business undoubtedly. But in those days, the plant, they didn't have a great deal of electricity to start with, and so the plant was operated with steam. And to get the steam, they had a boiler room with this stack that I mentioned, and very inefficient. The operators in the boiler room had to work stripped to the waist, and it was extremely, unbearably hot. There was no insulation on these boilers. They just put the fuel in there to generate the steam, and the steam, there was no recovery of the steam either after it was used. They used it just to some of the cooking apparatus for cooking in the process, but also for running two immense steam engines. One big engine was, they were both in the center of the plant, but one engine was directed toward the sugar beet end where these beets entered the plant. And in those days, the steam engine ran a great big, what they called a line shaft with a lot of big pulleys on it. And from these pulleys were leather belts down to each item of equipment, which would run that equipment.
Sounds
in
dangerous
the process.
to me. Was it dangerous?
Well, it was pretty dangerous, yeah, because they didn't have any safety rules in those days. You had to watch out for yourself. The other steam engine was directed toward the sugar end, as they called it, and it ran all of the equipment in the sugar processing end after the sugar, the pulp, beet pulp. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. These beets came into the plant from these wagons that Emme mentioned, and they were taken up on a dump up above, so they had a bed on this dump that could tip the whole wagon. They'd tie the wagon down to the bed and just tip it over and dump the beets into the flume where running water washed them into the plant at the same time washing the beets as they went into the plant. And that's where these samples, I will tell about that
Yes,
later.
I want that sample story later.
The beets went into shredders. They called them cutters. And they just shredded the beet like French fried potatoes. And from there they went into what you would call cookers, and they were thoroughly cooked and then pressed and the juice taken out, which had the sugar. The rest was pulp, which was sent out to a pile in the yard and it really stunk. You had to live here about 6 months before you could stand the smell. But that's why some of the dairies were here that day, because this beet pulp was good cattle feed.
Good
And that
cattle
was
feed.
a way of getting rid of it.
You know, Bill, at the Los Alamitos Museum, we've got a sample of that pulp that we had gotten from someone, and there's also the blade that shredded the beets.
Yeah. They were knives, as they called them. Yeah, that was a special job, the plant sharpening those knives from time to time in a station for cutting those beets, because it got dull pretty fast.
I'll bet.
But after the pulp was cooked and pressed, then it went into the sugar end of the plant where it was boiled, and where they made syrup out of it.
Could you smell that in the air? Could you smell the sweet smell of sugar?
No.
You couldn't smell that?
You only smell the stink of the beet pulp out in the yard.
All right,
Bill. But they had these boilers where they boiled this syrup until it was a green, or it was a brown heavy mass, at which time they would dump it into centrifuges to spin it, and they had bleachers that would spray it with a bleaching compound that would turn it white as they sprayed it, and then they would dump it into drying kilns, as they call it. It was rotating.
Well, you really know the process,
kilns.
don't you?
I worked taking visitors through the plant when I was a kid.
You did?
One of the jobs one
For
summer,
tours?
so I did at that time. I knew it well. But they finally bought a granulator, and they could make anything from powdered sugar to real coarse sugar with this granulator before they bagged it. But from this granulator, it went into a bagging machine that would weigh out just automatically 100 pounds into a bag and sew up the bag, and then they'd cart it out to this warehouse. That's the primary process. I might say there was a lot of jobs like maintaining these belts.
And you did a lot of the different jobs, didn't you?
What's that?
You did a lot of the different jobs.
Let me mention one thing that I heard here. I don't know whether this is from Emmy, but they
Well, wait a
mentioned...
minute. Let's save it, because I just got a cue that we're going to break here for a minute.
Okay.
And then when we come back, I want to hear the story about the sugar beet testing as well, right? How you tricked them when they tried to trick you?
Yeah.
Okay? Right now we're going to go to then and now pictures of Los Alamitos, so take it away. Well, we're back, and we're going to get Bill Poe on, and we're going to give him a minute to tell his story, his great story about the sugar beet testing, how he tried to trick you and you tricked him back.
Am I ready then?
You're
for that
ready,
story?
Bill. Go.
Okay. I had a lot of jobs in the sugar factory summers during school vacations, but one of the very interesting was catching samples at this beet dump. When they tipped these wagons over, the farmers got paid for the sugar content of their load. And each load was a sample was taken and put in a canvas bag and sent to the laboratory for a test and labeled. So if you got any dirt in that sample, why the farmer just didn't get hardly anything for that load of sugar, sugar beets. So they were real clever. Sometimes they'd put a big pile of dirt in the back end of their wagon. If you'd happen to be taking your sample in one part of the wagon,
You did
continuously, you know, why that you'd get good beets and maybe get a lot of dirt somewhere else. So I had a practice of swinging the bucket around and going first one end and the other and then through the middle, just for what they call a running sample. So it was a pretty good sample, but sometimes it'd get a big chunk of dirt in there.
I wonder
and they
how
didn't
long
like
it
that.
took before they figured that you were doing that.
But these fellows in the laboratory were seasonal workers that came here just during the campaign, and they're the ones that ran the tests and then reported back.
sugar
And that's
content.
what the farmers got paid,
Well,
according to that test.
Laura, we're now going to you. Laura. Okay. 3 things happened in 1898 in this town. Los Alamitos was formed, and Orange County separated from Los Angeles County, and the Labourdettes came to town, right? The
Yeah,
first Labourdette.
that's right.
Okay. What I want you to tell me is about what your dad did that brought you to this town.
Well, my dad was in the real estate business,
Uh-huh.
and he opened a tract called City Garden Acres, and it's from Farquhar south north to Catella, from Los Alamitos Boulevard east to Lexington.
That spot right down
Yeah.
where the shopping center is now.
Where the shopping center is.
Uh-huh.
And then we had Green Street was named after my father.
That's where Green Street came from.
Howard Street was named after his partner. Farquhar was named after the man that graded the streets. As they were nothing but dirt streets.
Uh-huh.
And there was a tent there where they brought people out by bus from Long Beach to sell them lots. And he had them in quarter acre, half acre, and acre lots to show what could be done with each one of those.
And was raising rabbits?
And we had one, he built us a home on one, and we had a demonstration of rabbits and chickens. And we raised fur rabbits.
Do you remember what those cost? What those lots
No.
cost originally?
No idea. They were cheap. Cheap to now.
And you commuted back and forth to school
I
to
went
Long
back.
Beach?
I went to Long Beach for a couple of years
and then
to
when
school.
Where did you go to school when you came here?
And then I went to Laurel School, and I graduated from Laurel School.
Where Bob's
in
Big Boy is
27
now.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You got more there?
I don't know what else I was
Well,
gonna say.
I wanted to find out what you did, Laura. I know you're such a devil now. What did you do when you were a teenager for fun? What were the things that went
we
on?
used to chase rabbits in the
How?
cars.
In the car. That's
In
what
the
I wanted to
cars.
get out of you.
My husband had a Dodge, I think it was called. We used to get in that thing and chase the rabbits through the fields.
Run up and down the fields.
And then we used to have, of course, as kids, we all gathered together and we'd play Run Sheep Run and hide and go seek and all those kind of games, you know. We had nothing but fields out here. There was plenty of places to play.
A lot of kids?
And quite a few kids at the time.
And didn't someone named Bill Poe, that's sitting to your right, chase rabbits in his car and go into a ravine?
Yeah. He and my
took the whole
husband
car
were,
into a ravine?
he and my husband were the ones that started that
They
stuff.
broke the mold on those two,
Yeah,
Shirley Hubert told
it's
me.
a good thing they did.
So they palled around together.
Yes.
And Bill married your sister, or
No.
wasn't it? All right, now she married a Labourdette, your husband's.
A sister.
Okay, there's so many people in this town married
Yeah.
to the families intermarried, I get all confused. So
I know.
you married a Labourdette, Bill, right?
Bill married a Labourdette, and I married a Labourdette. I married the only boy in the family.
Oh, and Bill and your husband ran around together. Your husband, tell us about his plumbing and
Well, he started plumbing. He worked for a long time. He worked for the Navy dry docks, and then he moonlighted by doing plumbing, and finally got his own business started, where is now AJ Supply. That's where he started his plumbing business,
I see. And what street is that on?
and that's on Cerritos or Spring Street.
And that's a big company. Everyone
Now
around
it's
town knows.
now it's building supply, all kinds of building things in there.
Well, there was something else I wanted to ask you about your husband. He was a little bit of a devil in a lot of ways and adventurous. Tell us about his career, flying planes.
Well, he flew a plane and he went to, I think it was Hawaiian Gardens. He flew and he went into a haystack.
He crashed.
He crashed into a haystack. Then he decided he was going to take it up, and he tried to get it up again, and he knocked a telephone pole over and then left. He left. He left there. Nobody knew who did it. And they used the wings of the plane, I believe it was the wings, to make chicken coops or something like
So
that.
the plane was just left there, so they used it.
Yeah, so they used it.
Did he fly a lot, or was this sort of a lark with him?
No, he didn't fly a whole lot, no.
There were other plane crashes in
Yeah.
this area too, weren't
Well,
there? His was a little one.
Bill's wife got a pilot's license at 16, wasn't she?
Your
17.
16 or 17, yeah. She had a pilot's license then.
Oh dear, and you went to a lot of dances too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
there was several
Leo
dances.
Layton was telling me about the dances that the Labourdettes went to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now also your husband during Prohibition was given the permission to have a winery.
No, it wasn't my husband. That was my father-in-law.
Your father-in-law?
Father-in-law. During Prohibition, he was allowed to have 200 gallons of wine, to make 200 gallons of wine, because that's all he drank. And so they allowed him permission during Prohibition to make 200 gallons of wine.
A year?
Uh-huh.
Did 200 gallons a year do it
I guess
for
it was,
him?
I guess it did.
It sounds like an awful lot to
He
me.
did.
Enough.
It wasn't enough, Bill said.
we had, we sampled it all the time, you know.
Did he ever sneak and make any more than 200 gallons? Come on, Bill, you tell
I don't
us.
know. Maybe
Did he?
Bill knows. He probably
Did
did.
he ever make more than the 200 gallons?
Yeah, he drank about a gallon a day. That's
So he-
365 days. But he had 5 acres of grapes here that he did nothing but harvest and make wine out of the grapes that were
Well,
produced
that's
on the 5
365
acres.
gallons. You're right.
And
200
he
gallons
had to
wasn't
buy
enough.
grapes in between to
Yeah.
make
He had
to
wine
buy more
get him
'cause
by,
his-
yeah. And then we bought him wine too when he ran out. So in gallons, jugs, you know.
Gallon jugs. Oh gosh, Bill. On this subject, where were you during the earthquake in '33?
I was with my father-in-law getting drunk,
You were in the,
and we were there alone in the kitchen. This house, incidentally, where AJ Supply is, that's the home stand of August and my wife's parents. That's where they lived, in that same greenhouse that's there.
So-
and that's where the winery and the saloon was, and the grocery store that
so
they
you,
had there.
the earthquake came and you said the walls were moving, but you thought it was all
Oh,
right.
they came in on us pretty near. That house really laid down on us, but
All right, you three. We're going to go into another half hour on another night with you. All right, will you come back and tell us more stories? Sure you will.
I'll be glad.
Okay. Until our next show, this is Myrt saying so long.